Hello, hello, and welcome again to BSB Must Reads. Now, I'm sure you all have no idea who it is here beside me on the screen. Ali Vali needs no introduction, but her new book does. A Good Chance, which I'm very excited to hear about soon. Hi, Ali.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. All right. I want to jump right in. So if there may be a person left on Earth who has not heard about Ali Valley, why don't you tell the folks a little bit about yourself, about your novel, A Good Chance, and then you
Okay.
can read from us.
All right. Well, I am Ali Valley. I live right outside of New Orleans. Most of my stories, which I think I'm in the process, I have about like 10 more pages left to do on the one I'm working on right now, which will be my 34th, I think. But the one that is out right now, it's called A Good Chance. It is a sequel to One More Chance. It was kind of a tough subject to tackle. It's about domestic violence and someone escaping of domestic violence. But unless everyone never watches the news, you know that a year ago, a couple days ago, was the anniversary of Hurricane Ida. So our office actually was destroyed. I mean, we were down. I like to say it was the definition of open concept because you could see you could stand in front of the office, look all the way down because it was down to the studs. So we actually made our home around a table at the domestic violence program. So we got to listen to some of the stories that these women out and went out and did. So from that, and I wrote this kind of a long time ago, but I tweaked it and I think it's a much more complete story. So today it is, like I said, it's a sequel. So we pick up from where Harry and Desi left off. They're now, living happily, hopefully. But as in all romances, that never really sticks, does it? So this is a scene toward the front of the book. It's not at the very beginning, but toward the front of the book. And Desi, who has gone from a very battered woman to an artist, she's now a potter. And this is the night of her first show. So this will take it from there. Harry Basante stood to the side in the gallery on Magazine Street and watched her fiance interact with the crowd. She'd proposed a couple of hours earlier before they'd left the house, not wanting to wait another moment to let Desi know what she wanted. The expression on Desi's face when she dropped to her knees and opened the ring box would forever be one of her favorites. They still had a month before the baby's birth to plan a small, intimate wedding. If Desi wanted something more, they could do it after the birth. But she wanted more than anything to have Desi as her wife before their baby was born. It was old fashioned, maybe, but that didn't matter. So much had changed in a year, and it proved to her that in all the pain when Desi left had been worth it to have Desi back. She was still angry at what had happened and that she couldn't change the past, but Desi's sense of honor and compassion didn't surprise her. She tolerated the life her sadistic father had chosen for her to keep herself and Rachel safe. 16 long years of abuse, bruises, pain, and fear inflicted by Byron Simoneau were hard to forget, much less forgive. All she could do going forward was to listen when Desi needed to talk about things, and while she'd asked a few questions, she didn't try to push too much. Her reasoning for not asking questions had nothing to do with not wanting to know, but she was trying to give Desi the space to open up on her own at her own pace. Desi's life had been an eternity of suffering. That she'd volunteered for it to protect the people she truly loved was something Harry would never be able to repay. Seeing Desi now, though, made it hard to imagine the broken, despondent woman she'd found in the emergency room. Desi had left that life behind to become an artist who'd flourished into a strong woman who still had the gentle soul Harry had known all her life. The nightmare of misery now belonged to Desi's ex-husband, Byron, his father, and his brother, Mike. It had been years before they'd walked out. It would be years before they walked out of Angola, the Louisiana State Penitentiary, and she'd hoped every day of being locked up in that hellhole brought them as much pain as Desi had lived through. What's this one called? Abe, one of her residents, held one of Desi's pieces in one hand and a boiled shrimp in the other. Exactly how much have you had to drink? She handed him a napkin before he smeared remoulade on Desi's work. It's a bowl. She glanced around, and the only residents on her rotation missing were the ones on call. And given the busy nature of the emergency room, there was no way they were coming. It is a bowl, and it's called Blue Sapphire. Desi slipped her hand into Harry's and smiled at Abe. He blushed so deeply that Harry thought about jabbing an EpiPen in his thigh. Thanks for coming, Abe. Abe wasn't the only one of her residents, male or female, who turned into socially awkward people around Desi. Don't let her give you a hard time. Sorry, I had no idea the bulls had names. She stood still as Desi leaned heavily into her. If you don't want to end up on the news for all the wrong reasons, don't let Tony name anything. The way Desi stared up at her before grabbing the lapels of her jacket made Harry's elbows, eyebrows rise. She brought her head down when Desi pulled and embarrassed herself by moaning when Desi bit her bottom lip before kissing her. Abe was still standing there when the kiss ended. She's not doing that with every purchase, so move along, Abe. There's still plenty to see. Harry, Desi lengthened her name in mock warning. Take a look around, Abe, and let me know if you have any questions. This is a great turnout, Harry said. The gallery was large by magazine standards, and Harry was happy about the number of people milling around. She'd done all she could to encourage Desi's budding career, from building shelves in her studio to laying out all the supplies Desi needed every morning. Desi was now a few days shy of 8 months pregnant, and she didn't want her lifting anything heavier that weighed more than a coffee cup. Your work is as beautiful and unique as you are. Desi's pieces had a complicated glaze on them, and the New Orleans magazine had taken notice and done an extensive article on the newcomer. Once the show was announced, people had flocked to the space, and it was clear to see they loved Desi's work. Thank you, but I think you might be a little prejudiced on the subject. Don't be modest. She held Desi against her, and that was it. I don't want to go any further, give away the plot.
What? We're just getting to the sexy part.
I'm telling you. Getting ready to go home. And
All right, I guess I was gonna make a joke about how readers are gonna have to pay for it, but I don't know. Did I say that? Did I say that on the internet?
I think you can.
All right,
So,
Ali Valley. As this is a sequel, why don't you tell us a little more about One More Chance, right? Because I feel like if readers haven't read that one, they should read that one first.
oh, definitely, definitely. Yeah, no, Desi spent 16 years. They were high school sweethearts. And sometimes your high school sweetheart, I have a lot of people I went to high school with, and they got married. If they're happily married, I ran into a friend of mine the other day, and he was like, well, yeah, no, we're together, but that's
Oh
about
no.
it. Yeah, exactly. It was like, oh, that's terrible. But anyway, no, they were very happy. They had a lot of plans for the future. And Desi's father was kind of a sadistic, well, you know what I get my meaning. But anyway, he could not tolerate having a gay kid. So he forces her to marry this guy named Byron Simino, who is another sadistic kind of ass. And so she spends 16 long years getting, the hell kicked out of her with this guy, until one day it got to the point where she ends up in the emergency room and then finds, of all people, her lost love, Harry. And from there, the first book kind of progresses. This guy does not easily let go, but his father, and his brother actually end up in jail. So where this one picks off is, you think like when the first book ended, it should be a happily ever after. But in this case, not so much. Angola in Louisiana, it's kind of a famous prison all the way around the country, in that they own no mechanical anything. So they farm. I think the only thing they buy is like their clothes, but they grow all their food, they grow all their cattle, but it's done all by hand. So you should have a goal never to go there. Follow
for
the
many
law.
reasons, but
You do not want to go to jail. So, but they have a rodeo every year. So I got to go, and it's one of the reasons it's such a great place for a prison is that there's one road in and one road out, and it's surrounded for miles and miles by swamp. So you can run, there's no fences anywhere. So you can run, you're just never going to make it. So these, Byron and his family are there now, and they're there for years, but they see their opportunity and they make a run for it. So where Harry and Desi are planning for a new baby, a new life, her sister is in love as well. So this it's kind of a twofold romance in this one. So Serena and Rachel, who is her sister, Desi's sister, kind of have a love hate thing going on a little bit, and then but all of a sudden they're happily ever after. There's a big black cloud over it because he makes it out, so he's now back on the street, and his number one thing is to get revenge on the people that put him there. So it's a kind of a
well, I'm gonna ask the question that I'm sure you're gonna answer for me. That's not going to give away anything important, and that's that Byron gets caught again, right? Like, is there's not going to be like a book 3? There's not going to be like a not a chance or
well, well, I would
uh-oh,
tell
you
you
guys.
that
I just put the idea in her head.
I'd have to kill you if I told you. So, yeah, no, I mean it is a romance, and I think all those emails you sent me on what you can and can't do in a romance.
For me?
So yeah, no, it's a no, I think everybody will like how it ends. It'll be a good ending.
All
It
right.
is
All
a
right.
happy
Still in
ever
suspense over whether
after.
he ends up
Yeah,
back
no,
in
this
jail
one
or
is
not.
a two and done. So we're going back to the now I'm writing that one now about the rodeo, Never Kiss a Cowgirl. But then after that we move back into well, there's one more after that, but the one that will always continue, it seems, because I keep adding new characters, is the Devil series. But
Oh,
this
of
one is
course.
not the Devil series. So there will only be 2 books.
All right. Well, fair enough. But we'll see how it goes. And we may hold out hope for a not a chance in the future. Um, so you mentioned in your intro that both of these books are about domestic violence. Um, why? Like, why is this something that you chose to write about in the context of a romance novel?
I guess it goes back, I was in college, and I'll kind of date myself here a little bit, but I have my degree
Way
is in
back when the
marketing.
dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Exactly. No, I have a degree in marketing, but I have a minor in psychology. So I took a ton of psychology classes. And one of the classes that I took was the guy's assignment was to watch, it was like a Sunday night movie special or something, I forget. It was Farrah Fawcett, who had a major crush on when I was a kid, in a movie called The Burning Bed. And that is one of the first cases that ever had domestic violence as a defense. And so this woman had lived years and years with this really horrible, horrible person. And so one day she snapped, douses, the guy's sleeping. She douses the bed in gasoline and lights him up. I would have done that probably 2 days in, but that's just me. So she ends up going, they accuse her of first degree murder, and she goes to trial, and a jury of her peers found her innocent because of the years of suffering that she had had. So the next day, on Monday, we go back and we were discussing this, and this girl I actually went to high school with was in my class, and she ended up, I said, I just don't understand how anyone would stay, because who raised me. And my mother was a very strong woman. And, her saying was always, anyone could get hit once and shame on them. But if you stick around, get hit, my father had hit her. I think, she probably would have killed him with a frying pan. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. So this girl tells me, she said, you can't ever say that. It's not something that you can, so she told me her story, and she had dated a guy that I knew, and they had dated since junior high. And she said never had an inkling that this guy until one day. So they get married like right after high school. She's in college and he is working as a welder, I think. And he had a bad day at work. And when he came home, he beat her so severely that he put her in the hospital. And she said her brother, they had to calm her brother and her father down from hunting this guy down. And she said, but he showed up at the hospital and he told her that his father, he grew up in an abusive household. And that's how he thought you handled stress, was to do that. And she said but he showed up and he swore it would never happen again. And that he brought flowers and he loved her and she took him back. And then 6 months went by and it was pretty perfect until he had another bad day at work. Only that time he put her in intensive care because he broke all her ribs. He broke her jaw because he came home with a baseball bat. And so it wasn't just his fist. And that story just stuck with me. And we fund, I work for a nonprofit and we fund a couple of programs actually for domestic violence. And it gives you a good feeling to give somebody a kind of a safe haven to run to. But I never realized until I sat there for that year and see what these women deal with on a daily basis that I think it's a story that needs to be told, because in most cases, you see these women come in and they're battered and they're bruised, and then they leave about 8 to 12 months later, because this is a different kind of shelter where they get to stay for a long time. And they walk out of there with their kids in a new life without abuse. And it's because, people care enough to give to this type of thing and to this program. So we had some interesting stories, like every once in a while they'd come. Like I said, we sat around this table for about a year. So I'm kind of glad we're back in our offices. I love my staff, but not that much. I got to get the hell away from you. So, but every once in a while they would come and they're like, okay, y'all be careful going to your car because there's this guy with an AK-47 and he just called and said he wants to come here and kill everyone. It was like, oh, okay.
Oh boy.
What? What did you just say? It's not so it's something that it was hard to write, but I think it's important to show that, kind of to celebrate the survivors of where they go through this.
Yeah, a powerful story and a powerful experience, and voices that don't often get heard.
Exactly.
So awesome. All right, we'll move a little bit on a different topic. Tell us a little bit more about Rachel and Serena, because there is a new romance in this for the readers who have already read One More Chance. So what is it that brings Rachel and Serena together?
At first, I think it's what brings a lot of people together. It's just you see somebody who's really good looking and you fall instantly into lust, not necessarily like love at first sight kind of thing. But they're both they're very different people. One is an assistant district attorney who works with victims of domestic violence. The other one's a hairdresser. I mean, she that's what she does. But Rachel is one of my favorite characters I've ever written. She's very sarcastic, just because of the life that they've led. In the beginning, her sister Desi marries this guy to actually save her sister from her father. And she marries this guy, Rachel moves in with her and ends up saving her because she's the one that kind of nurses her through all the stuff that happens to her. So she's one of the ones that really pushed her and Harry together to get back together. But now she's in love with Serena. And at the very beginning of the book, Serena is very busy with her job and she's not calling as often. So she thinks that romance has kind of cooled. So she wants something. She wants her own Harry, I guess, is what everybody wants, maybe. And she ends up not taking a lot of crap from Serena, and who, she thinks that maybe the adventure with the hairdresser is over, kind of slumming on the other side of the road kind of thing. But Harry and Desi kind of help, especially Harry helps her and tells her, hey, you're just as good as anybody else. And you don't need to take crap from anybody. So whether it works out or not, she had a home with her sister and her new sister-in-law. So, but it's kind of a fun romance and how they get together. And you'll see some characters that you might recognize from other stories who come in and kind of maybe put a crimp in that romance between Serena and Rachel. So
Awesome. Some Easter eggs in there for Ali Valley fans. And please, do take it from the horse's mouth that y'all don't take no crap from anyone. You heard it here first.
exactly.
Thank you so much, Ali. Please do check out A Good Chance, which is out today on the Bold Strokes Books web store, September 1st, and will be out everywhere books are sold, September 13th. If you have not read One More Chance yet, do pick that one up also. And I hope you enjoy. Thanks so much, Ali.
Thanks. Thanks for everybody for joining us.